ITC, International Transport Contractors. Head Office, Haarlem, Holland, the center of a worldwide organization with branch offices in Houston and Tokyo and agents in all commercial centers. ITC, for a long time, specialists in conventional wet ocean towage, with the availability of 7 tons, all of 15,000 horsepower, which are able to tow the heaviest objects across the greatest distances. ITC. Right from its establishment in 1973, they succeeded in catching the attention of the maritime and construction world with the development of the dry towing system, a faster and less costly way of ocean towage. ITC, decades of experience in preparing and performing hundreds of long-distance towages and heavy lift transports all over the world. ITC, an engineering department at the home base in Haarlem, where all kinds of transport operations are thoroughly analyzed and where the search for innovation never stops. ITC, introducers of the transport of large jack-up drilling rigs on a submersible barge. The first to transport 1 rig on barge and the first to transport 2 rigs by 1 barge. Creators of the VLSS, the Very Large Submersible Ship. The first vessel of this kind was the Civic Venture, a modified crude carrier which came into operation at the end of 1982. The transport of 2 27,000-ton base sectors for the concrete protective barrier that will ultimately protect an Ecofisk field structure was one of the greatest challenges one could think of. After the successful raising of the Ecofisk platforms to a level of 6 meters higher above seabed than originally installed, the protection of the concrete storage tank was at hand. After an extensive investigation, the decision was made by the Phillips Petroleum Company, Norway, to leave the gravity-based structure's deck at its original height and install 2 half-circle protective concrete barriers around it. The initial construction phase was carried out in the Verolme Botlek yard in the Netherlands, where 2 base structure sectors were cast up to an overall height of above 12.5 meters. The next phase was the transport of the 2 sections separately to Norway, where each would be built up to a total height of 87 meters. The Civic Venture was contracted to fulfill the transport. What made the Ecofisk barrier base special are the material, concrete, the dimensions, 141-meter diameter, the weight of each concrete structure, 27,000 tons, her extreme draft, and the difference in shape and flexibility of the barrier and the vessel. The interaction between the barrier-based structure and its carrier were thoroughly analyzed with the help of 3-dimensional finite element analysis. The results of the calculations were that some problems could arise due to the large size and shape of the barrier sections and possible slamming effects on cargo overhang. The Civic Venture had to be modified enabling her to submerge to accommodate a 10.9-meter water depth over her main deck. Ballast conditions were determined to be sufficient to minimize any deck crushing of the heavy lift vessel because of unusual weight distribution load factors. The overall strength of the Civic Venture appeared to be sufficient, but a certain amount of internal strengthening of the vessel was unavoidable. Main modifications were stiffening against local buckling inside the hull, installation of additional ballast tanks, as well as cantilever supports at the side shell under the concrete overhangs. A layer of 60-centimeter sandwich construction of hard and soft wood was laid out on the deck of the Civic Venture. On each side of the vessel, where the barrier protrudes, stiffness of the cribbing construction was increased, thus avoiding high stresses in the concrete from cantilever effects. This stiffening was achieved by using a combination of hardwood and steel beam grill work. To summarize the main preparations for the transport: strengthening and modifying the hull and superstructures due to increased submersion, strengthening the cargo deck at heavily stressed areas, design and layout of the cribbing on the cargo deck. November 24, the Civic Venture was submerged until 10.5 meters of water was over the main deck. Then, the first barrier half was floated into position over the deck. Once in precision position, deballasting operations commenced, raising the vessel with its 27,000 tons cargo. Sea fastening operations to secure the barrier structure firmly in place required another 3 days. Due to delay in the construction, the transport took place in wintertime. Bad weather, force 10, almost spoiled the glorious voyage. But thanks to excellent seamanship, the barrier arrived without damage. The first barrier arrived at November the 30th in Elfjordan, Norway, followed by the second on December 18. A short time after the successful transport of the barrier, a second opportunity appears for the Civic Venture to prove its value. During a routine inspection in Piraeus, Greece, tank number 3 of the tanker Mariana II explodes. There was a considerable damage. The Mariana II broke her back. Several solutions were put forward to make the Mariana II seaworthy again. Cut out the most heavy damaged part and weld the other 2 parts. Repair in Greece. Wet towage of the separate parts to a repair yard. Lastly, ITC came with an innovative but daring proposal: transport to Korea, from which yard the best suited offer was at hand of both parts at the same time with the Civic Venture. This, of course, after careful calculations. Again, some modifications were necessary. For example, a new cribbing had to be made. Part of this job was done during the voyage to Greece. The rest was done in Greece. These preparations were carried out with the most possible accuracy. again, a bad weather area. This time in the East China Sea caused some trouble. But when it is possible to manage this giant through the Suez Canal with a total breadth of only 80 meters, nothing could withhold the civic venture from another success. ITC, with the civic venture and the tug and barge fleet, will remain forerunner in towage, salvage and heavy lift transportation.